December 27th, 1899, Volume 3. Charity must be like a mantle that covers one's actions. He continued to make himself seen like shadow and flash. While I was in a sea of bitterness because of his absence, in one instant he made himself seen, telling me, "Charity must be like a mantle, which must cover all of your actions, in such a way that everything must shine with perfect charity. What is the meaning of your being displeased when you do not suffer? That your charity is not perfect, because suffering for love of me, and not suffering for love of me, without your will, is all the same." And he disappeared, leaving me more embittered than before, wanting to touch a key too delicate for me, which he himself has infused in me. Then, after I shed bitter tears for my miserable state, and over the absence of my adorable Jesus, he came back and told me, "With just souls I act with justice, or rather, I give them double recompense for their justice, by favoring them with greater graces, and by speaking to them of just words and of sanctity." However, I found myself so confused and bad that I did not dare to utter a single word. Rather, I continued to shed tears over my misery. And Jesus, wanting to infuse trust in me, placed his hand under my head in order to lift it, because it could not hold itself up. And he added, "Do not fear, I am the shield of the tribulated." And he disappeared. December 27th, 1900, Volume 4. God is not subject to changing, while the devil and the human nature change very often. This morning I was with a fear about my state, that it was not the Lord who operated in me, with the addition that he was not deigning to come. Then, after much waiting, I saw him for just a little. I expressed my fear to him, and he said to me, "My daughter, first of all, in order to put you in this state, there is a concurring of my power. And then who would have given you the strength and the patience to remain in this state, in a bed, for such a long time? Perseverance alone is a sign that the work is mine, because God alone is not subject to changing, while the devil and the human nature change very often. What they love today, they abhor tomorrow, and what they abhor today, they love tomorrow and find their satisfaction in it. December 27th, 1901, Volume 4. Jesus, the administrator of the most holy Trinity to creatures. Division among priests. It is needless to talk about my poor state, about how I have reduced myself. It would be wanting to embitter and deepen the wounds of my soul. Therefore I let everything pass in silence, making an offering to the Lord. This morning, while I was crying over the loss of my adorable Jesus, the confessor came and gave me the obedience to pray the Lord to deign to come. It seems he came, and since the confessor had placed the intention of the crucifixion, he shared with me the pains of the cross. And while doing this, he said to the confessor, "I was the administrator of the most holy Trinity. That is, I administered to people the power, the wisdom, and the charity of the divine persons. You, being my representative, must do nothing but continue my same work with souls. And if you do not interest yourself, you come to break the work which I started, and I feel defrauded in the execution of my designs. And I am forced to withdraw the power, the wisdom, and the charity which I would have administered to you, had you carried out the work I entrusted to you." After this, it seemed he transported me outside of myself, and a multitude of people could be seen from afar, from whom an unbearable stench came. Jesus said, My daughter, what a division priests will cause among themselves! This will be the last blow to foment parties and revolution among the peoples." And he said this so embittered as to arouse compassion. Then after this, remembering about my state, I said to him, "Tell me, my Lord, do you want me to have the obedience given to me to stop being in this state? More so since no longer suffering as before, I see myself as useless?" And he answered me, "That's right." But he was so very afflicted, and my heart was restless, as if I had not wanted him to tell me that. So I replied, "But Lord, it is not that I want to go out of it, but I want to know your holy will, because my state was that you would come to me and share your sufferings with me. But since this has ceased, I fear that you don't even want me to continue to stay in bed." And Jesus, "You are right. You are right." But no, I felt my heart crack because of the answers given to me by blessed Jesus, and I added, "But my Lord, tell me at least, what is your greater glory? For me to continue to stay even if I should die, or to have the obedience to stop given to me?" And Jesus, seeing that I would not quit, changed the subject himself by saying to me, "My daughter, I feel offended by everyone. See, even devout souls have their eyes on scrutinizing whether something is sin or not. But as for amending themselves, rooting sin out, no. A sign that there is neither sorrow nor love, because sorrow and love are two most efficacious ointments which, applied to the soul, render her perfectly healed, each strengthening and fortifying the other more." But I was thinking about my poor position, and I wanted to repeat it again in order to know the will of the Lord with clarity. But Jesus disappeared from me, and I, returning inside myself, saw myself all confused as what to do. So, in order to be sure, I exposed everything to obedience, which wants me to continue to stay. May the will of the Lord be always done. December 27th, 1908, Volume 8. What passed between baby Jesus and his sweet mamma when she would feed him from her breast? The "I love you" of the creature is requited by the "I love you" of the Creator. I was meditating on when the Queen Mamma would give her milk to baby Jesus. I was saying to myself, what must have passed between the Most Holy Mamma and little Jesus in this act? At that moment I felt him move in my interior, and I heard him say to me, "My daughter, when I suckled milk from the breast of my most sweet mother, together with milk I suckled the love of her heart, and it was more love than milk that I suckled." While suckling, I would hear her say to me, "I love you, O son." And I would repeat to her, I love you, O Mamma." And I was not alone in this. At my "I love you," the Father, the Holy Spirit, and the whole of creation, the angels, the saints, the stars, the sun, the drops of water, the plants, the flowers, the grains of sand, and all of the elements would run after my "I love you" and repeat, we love you, O Mother of our God, in the love of our Creator." My mother could see all this and would remain inundated. She couldn't find not even a tiny space in which she would not hear me say that I loved her. Her love would remain behind and almost alone, and she would repeat, I love you, but she could never match me, because the love of a creature has its limits, its time, while my love is uncreated, unending, eternal. The same happens to any soul when she says to me, I love you. I too repeat to her, I love you. and with me is the whole creation loving her in my love. Oh, if creatures comprehended what good and honor they procure for themselves, even by just saying to me, I love you. This alone would be enough. A God beside them, who honoring them replies, I love you too. December 27th, 1918, Volume 12, The Word of Jesus, His Son. During these past days, I had put nothing on paper of what Jesus had told me. I felt such listlessness. And Jesus in coming told me, My daughter, why don't you write? My word is light, and just as the sun shines in every eye, in such a way that all of them have sufficient light for all their needs, each one of my words is more than a sun, which can be light sufficient to illuminate any mind and to warm each heart. Each word of mine is a sun that comes out from me. Now it serves you, but as you write it, it will serve others. If you do not write, you suffocate this sun within me, preventing the outpouring of my love and all the good that a sun could do. And my Jesus, who is going to calculate on paper the words that you tell me? And he, this is not up to you to say, but to me. And even if they are not calculated, which will not be, the many suns of my words will rise majestically, placing themselves for the good of all. On the other hand, by not writing, you would prevent the sun from rising, and you would cause great harm. If anyone could prevent the sun from rising on the blue heavens, how much harm would he not cause to the earth? That one to nature and you to souls. And then it is the glory of the sun to shine majestically, and to carry as though in its hands the earth and everyone with its light. The harm is for those who do not take advantage of it. The same will happen with the sun of my words. It will be my glory to make rise as many different enchanting and beautiful suns for as many words as I say. The harm will be for those who do not take advantage of it. December 27th, 1921, Volume 13. The soul who lives in the divine will places in force the proceeds of creation, and everything she does is an outpouring of her Jesus that comes to her. Continuing in my usual state, my sweet Jesus told me, My daughter, every time the soul enters into my will, she comes to reflect herself in the mirror of my divinity. And in reflecting herself, she receives the divine features, and these features bind her to the divinity. And finding their own physiognomy in her, the divine persons recognize her as one from their family. They give her a place in their midst and admit her to their secrets. And recognizing their own will in her as center of life, they admit her to that eternal point and enrich her with all that eternity contains. Oh, how beautiful it is to see this little image of ours being inundated with all that eternity contains. Being little, she feels lost, drowned, unable to contain it within herself. But love, the carrying out of the life of our volition within her, pushes her to reflect herself in us, while our eternal waves continue in her like a machine that never ceases its motion. Oh, how we amuse ourselves! This was the only purpose of the creation of man. Through the exchange of our wills, he with us and we with him, to form our amusement as well as to render man completely happy. As the union with our will was broken by man, our bitternesses began, and also his unhappiness. Therefore, the purpose of creation failed. Now, who compensates us for this failure? Who places in force the proceeds of our creation? The soul who lives in our will. She leaves all generations behind, and as though being the first to be created by us, she places herself in order, according to the purpose for which we created man. Our will and hers are one, and as she operates with the divine will, our will acts in the human will. And here begin our divine proceeds in the human will. The purpose of creation is now in force. And since our will has infinite ways, as long as it finds a soul who offers herself to let our will act, it immediately recovers from the failure of all the other human wills. This is why we love her so much as to surpass all the love for all the other creatures together. She has rendered decorum, honor, glory, regime, and life to our will, oppressed and despised in the other creatures. How could we not give everything to her? Then, as if he could not contain his love, he pressed me to his heart and added, "Everything, everything to the little daughter of my will. I will be in continuous outpouring over you. Your thoughts will be the outpouring of my wisdom. Your gazes will be the outpouring of my light. Your breath, your heartbeat, your action will be preceded by my outpourings first, and then will have life. Be attentive, and in everything you do, think that it is an outpouring of your Jesus that comes to you." December 27th, 1926, Volume 20. How one who does not do the divine will would want to cut through the light and form darkness for himself. How true good must have its origin in God. How the soul who lives in the supreme will receives its balance within herself and is present in the whole creation, living life together with it. While my mind was swimming in the sun of the eternal volition, my beloved Jesus told me, "My daughter, the affront that a creature commits by not doing my will is great. My will is more than solar light. It invades everyone and everything, nor can anyone escape from it, from its endless light. Now, by doing her will, the creature wants to cut through this light, and she forms darkness in it. But my will rises and follows its course of light, leaving the creature in the darkness of her will. If someone cut through the light of the sun and formed a long night for himself, would he not be called insane and doer of great evil? Poor one, he would die of cold, no longer receiving the heat of the light of the sun. He would die of boredom, no longer being able to operate, because he would lack the good of the light. He would die of hunger, having neither light nor heat in order to make his little field, covered by the darkness of his will, vegetate and fecundate. It would be said of him, it would be better if a being so unhappy had never been born. All this happens to the soul who does her will. Therefore, the most deplorable evil is to not do my will, because once my will is removed, she dies of coldness for all the celestial goods. She dies of boredom, of tiredness, of weakness, because my will is missing, which makes the joy, the strength, and the life of the divine operating arise. She dies of hunger because its light is missing, which makes the little field of the soul vegetate and fecundate, in order to form the food on which she must live. Creatures think that not doing my will is not a great evil, while instead it encloses all evils together." Then after this he added, My daughter, every good, in order to be a good, must have its origin in God. Therefore, love, the doing good itself, suffering, the heroism of those who rush headlong into achieving an intent, the study of sciences, sacred and profane, in sum, anything that does not have its origin in God, inflates the creature. It empties her of grace. And all these goods that do not have their origin in God, but start with a human origin, are like works swept away by a mighty wind that, with its power, reduces cities, villas, sumptuous houses, to dust, and makes of them a heap. How many times a mighty wind destroys and knocks down the most beautiful works of art and of ingenuity, making fun, with its fury, of those works so praised and admired. How many times the mighty wind of self-esteem, of self-glory, the furious wind of pleasing creatures, knock down the most beautiful works, and I feel the nausea of that very good. Therefore there is no remedy that is more effective, more appropriate, more healing, and that blocks the fury of these winds within the soul, than the power of the light of my will, and the eclipse formed by it. Wherever this power, this eclipse formed by divine light, is present, these winds are prevented from blowing, and the creature lives under the vital influence of a divine will, in such a way that the seal of the Fiat can be seen in all of her acts, both small and great. So her motto is, God wants it, I want it. If he does not want it, neither do I want it. In addition to this, my will maintains perfect balance in the whole creation. It maintains the balance of love, of goodness, of mercy, of fortitude, of power, and even of justice. Therefore, when you hear of chastisements and of troubles, it is nothing other than the effect of my balanced will, that as much as it loves the creature, is not subject to becoming unbalanced. Otherwise it would be defective and weak, if it lost its balance. Indeed, all the order and the sanctity of it is here, in its perfect balance, always the same, without ever changing. Now, my daughter, firstborn of my will, listen to something beautiful about my supreme Fiat. With the soul who lives in it and allows it to reign in order to let it form its kingdom, my will, by locating itself, transfers its perfect balance into her. So the soul feels balanced in love, in goodness, in mercy, in fortitude, power, and justice. And since creation is extremely vast, in which my volition exercises its distinct act of balance in each thing, as the soul possesses this balance, my will elevates her and expands her so much as to make her find in all of her acts the balance of both one and the other, unifying them and rendering them inseparable. So the creature finds herself in the sun to do the balanced acts that my will does in it. She finds herself in the sea, in the heavens, in the little flower that blooms, to give off its fragrance together with it, in the little bird that sings, to cheer the whole creation with the balance of joy. She finds herself in the fury of the wind, of the water, of the storms, for the balance of justice. In sum, my will cannot be without this creature. They are inseparable, and they live life together. And do you think it is trivial that the soul can say, I am stretched within the heavens to preserve them for the good of my brothers. I am present in the sun to germinate, to fecundate, to give light, and to prepare the food for all mankind, and so with all the rest? Who can ever say, I love my God as He loves Himself, and I love everyone and I do all the good that my Creator does to the whole human family? Only one who receives this balance of the divine fiat and allows it to reign within herself. End of December 27th. Fiat.